Good afternoon, everyone. I believe the recording just started. I'm Stacey Berger. I'm the President and CEO at the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey. I'm thrilled to welcome you all to the kickoff launch for HouseNJ. We are going to be joined by a number of speakers in just a few moments. But I first just want to tell everyone who's with us a little bit about us and a little bit about the campaign. The network is the statewide association of nonprofit community development organizations. We represent about 300, closing in on 300 nonprofit community development groups, private sector lenders, and housing advocates who are working together to make sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home. We are thrilled that the House moved on the Build Back Better plan last year, and that legislation included $150 billion for housing investments in our country. It would represent the largest investment in housing infrastructure and affordability certainly in my lifetime and probably in the history of our nation. And so we believe very strongly that that piece of investment in Build Back Better must remain in any reconciliation proposal that Congress considers. And we are working with our local, state, and federal officials to make sure that President Biden and the Senate and House leadership advocate strongly for those investments to be made and included and remain in the deal. So that's why we're here today. We want to make sure that our national leaders know that this is incredibly important to New Jersey, and that when that funding comes to New Jersey, and we expect that it will, because we know our delegation and our leadership in DC is working to get that done, that the resources that we have here in New Jersey are well deployed so that we can make sure everyone can afford to call New Jersey home. And so we have a mix of federal legislators and strong state legislators who've been working on these issues with us for quite some time to talk about why this is important to New Jersey and to the country as a whole. Before we get to them, and I can see them joining the Zoom as we launch here, before we get to them, I want to ask my colleague at the National Low Income Housing Coalition, Kim Johnson, who is the Senior Policy Analyst. She was just promoted, and so I just wanted to make sure that I got her title correct. We really appreciate the work of our tremendous national organization, NLIHC, and all of the staff that have been working tirelessly there to make sure that that these investments are included in Build Back Better. So I want to turn this over to Kim so she can talk for a few minutes about what's happening at the national level. Kim?
Thank you so much, Stacey, and hi, everyone. Like Stacey said, my name is Kim Johnson. I'm a Senior Policy Analyst at the National Low Income Housing Coalition, and I am delighted to be here to help kick off the HouseNJ campaign. We are proud to stand behind the advocates at the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey to urge Congress to include the essential housing investments in the Build Back Better Act and any final reconciliation bill. The House passed Build Back Better Act includes critical funding targeted to meet the housing needs of the country's lowest income households, including $25 billion to expand housing vouchers to an additional 300,000 households, $65 billion to make critically needed repairs to and preserve public housing to ensure that the nation's over 2 million public housing residents have a safe, decent, and affordable place to call home, and $15 billion for the National Housing Trust Fund, which would build or preserve more than 150,000 affordable, accessible homes for households with the lowest incomes. These targeted essential investments will mean new, accessible, affordable, and stable homes for hundreds of thousands of the country's lowest income people, and would be the most significant single investment in deeply affordable housing in history. If enacted, these investments would directly address the underlying cause of the affordable housing crisis, the severe shortage of homes affordable and available to households with the lowest incomes. Our research has shown that nationally, there is not a single state or congressional district in the country with enough affordable, accessible homes to meet demand, leaving the lowest income renters at risk of eviction and, in worst cases, homelessness. Decades of chronic underfunding by Congress has left the nation's public housing stock in a state of disrepair, and despite clear urgent need, only 1 in 4 households who qualify for a housing voucher actually receive one. Generations of discriminatory housing policies enacted at the federal, state, and local levels mean that people of color, and in particular Black women and other historically marginalized groups, are bearing the brunt of this crisis. And while the affordable housing crisis did not begin with the pandemic has accelerated it and underscored how foundational housing is to all other aspects of our lives. From health and education to job and financial security to aging in place with dignity, we cannot build a better future for this nation without significant investments in affordable housing for those who need it the most. As homelessness increases, emergency rental assistance is depleted, and millions of renters struggle to remain stably housed, Congress cannot miss this moment of historic opportunity. NLIHC applauds the dedication of advocates in New Jersey and across the nation, as well as the congressional champions who have never stopped fighting to get these historic investments in housing vouchers, public housing, and the Housing Trust Fund enacted. Now is the time to keep pushing to get these resources across the finish line. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to address homelessness and put the country on a path towards universal housing assistance so that we can end homelessness and housing poverty once and for all. Thank you again for having me. We cannot thank you all enough for your work, and we cannot wait to see the impact of this campaign.
Thank you, Kim. We appreciate the work that you and all of your tremendous colleagues at NLIHC are doing, just tireless, relentless, persistent advocacy. We know that in New Jersey, we are really fortunate to have great elected officials, many of whom are joining us today, to make sure that this is on the top of the agenda. But we know that's not true everywhere around the country, and that we rely on you and your colleagues to help get the word out, and to make sure that everyone knows that we will all build back better when this legislation passes. And so we are going to continue to press here for our entire delegation, our legislature, local elected officials, really anyone who can join us to be part of the House New Jersey campaign, to make sure that when we get Build Back Better done, we are able to do that here in New Jersey with both federal and state resources. I believe that our intrepid team here at the network folks at the network are going to drop some additional information into the chat and probably post it on the Facebook feed. We're also streaming live on Facebook, which is, I think, something we have doing for the first time. So bear with us, everybody. If it's a little glitchy, we're going to work at it. I think it's going fine, though. We will include sign-ons and endorsements for folks to be able to join the campaign, to pass local resolutions, county level resolutions, and other ways for people to communicate directly with their elected officials about the need to build back better and make sure that we house New Jersey once and for all. Thanks, Kim, for being with us. I want to turn now to our champion of housing, one of the champions of housing in the U.S. Senate, our friend, Senator Bob Menendez. He was kind enough to share some words of wisdom and support with us in advance of today's event. Oh, I think we might have an audio problem with that. So we're gonna go over to Congressman Payne, who is with us. Thank you so much, Congressman, for being with us. We really appreciate it. Is your audio on? We'll give you the floor to talk about why this legislation is important and how you can work with us and with the president and the rest of the congressional leadership to make sure that the Build Back Better reconciliation bill has the housing investments we need in it. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be here to launch this campaign and promote more local resources for housing initiatives. And I want to thank the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey for this chance to speak with you today. You know, I've been a strong advocate and supporter of more federal investments in housing during my time in Congress. I helped pass the Build Back Better Act, and it contained provisions to support housing nationwide. It included $150 billion to improve and expand access to affordable housing. It provides $65 billion to repair and improve more than 500,000 housing units. And it included $25 billion to fund the construction, purchase, or rehabilitation of affordable and low-income housing. These are all important funding priorities across the country, and we must continue to support them even if Build Back Better Act does not become law. But my work has included more than Build Back Better support. I've helped pass bills to provide millions of dollars in for community development block grants, home investment partnerships, and the Housing Trust Fund. I've supported efforts to prevent New Jersey residents from being evicted from their homes during this COVID-19 public housing crisis. In addition, I've worked to get money included in the American Rescue Plan stimulus package for housing-related issues. The plan included more than $20 billion for rental assistance payments and almost $10 billion for mortgage assistance payments. My work on that plan helped to secure more than $15 million for our district in emergency solutions grants. But I learned housing funds have been delayed in getting to the people that need it the most. So I wrote a letter to New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy to speed up the process of how the state distributes COVID-19 housing funds. And I joined a letter to the Treasury Department to get New Jersey the rest of the $46.5 billion it is owed in a rental assistance funding. In Congress, we authorized that funding to help Americans stay in their homes, and we need to do more to get it to them immediately. But my work in Congress is only part of the battle to improve housing in New Jersey. Events like this one help create awareness of the incredible need for quality, affordable housing. The work of the Housing Community Development Network of New Jersey is critical to creating that awareness. So let us work together and help us pass the Build Back Better Act. And if we are not successful, let us find other methods to secure federal funding to support local housing initiatives. Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you for your commitment. We're not even remotely close to giving up on being willing to say that it's not going to pass. We're going to continue to fight. We believe that this is a piece of legislation that can and will get through Congress. And so we look forward to working with you to see it through. We really appreciate your tenacity and commitment to these issues and to making sure that everybody in New Jersey has a safe, affordable place to call home. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. I think we're going to go back to the video from Senator Menendez, where he wasn't able to be with us today in person, but he did send a terrific video. So I think we're going to show that quickly. Let's go back to Nina. There we go.
Thank you to Stacey Berger and Arnold Cohen for inviting me to share a few words with you today. The Housing and Community Network of New Jersey has always been an important partner to me. And our work together is even more critical right now as we enter the third year of a pandemic that has devastated our economy and left too many families on the verge of losing their homes. We made good progress in the American Rescue Plan by providing over $31 billion in assistance for renters and homeowners to stay in their homes, $100 million for housing counseling to help families avoid eviction and foreclosure or plan for the future, and more. But there's no hiding that too many New Jerseyans are still struggling to find safe, affordable housing. It took us years to build back from the foreclosure crisis, and now we run the risk of seeing all of our hard-fought progress erased. That's why we must make the transformative investments in the President's Build Back Better plan to address our country's affordable housing crisis. The latest version of the bill included several provisions I drafted, including a new program at HUD to address longstanding issues around zoning, planning, and land use, and to coordinate housing and transit investments so we can build more affordable housing in areas with access to good, high-paying jobs. You know how critical that would be for New Jersey. And the bill gives us an opportunity to make other investments that have been neglected for too long, like dedicating billions for public housing revitalization, new housing vouchers, creation of new affordable housing through the Housing Trust Fund, and critical down payment assistance for first-time home buyers so low-income families could get a boost into the middle class. If this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that housing is healthcare. At a time like this, we should be doing everything we can to help families find a safe and affordable place to call home.
We couldn't agree more with Senator Menendez, and we are grateful for his leadership on this issue and so many other housing-related issues. He has been an absolute champion on these issues in Congress. We are thrilled to have support from Senator Booker, who couldn't be with us himself today, but he sent in a statement of support indicating his commitment to making sure that the housing investments in the Build Back Better bill are in the reconciliation package. And Senator Booker had to say this: it's time for us to make long overdue investments to create, preserve, and improve our affordable housing infrastructure. And we couldn't agree more. We want to thank him and his staff for lending their support and their advocacy to making sure that all of the legislation includes all of the investments. Rather, the legislation includes all of the investments. Next, I'm thrilled to have a few words from Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman from the 12th Congressional District in New Jersey. Bonnie has been she was our first housing champion, community development champion, back when we launched that award many years ago. And she has been a relentless fighter to make sure that housing is included in the Build Back Better deal. Looks like we might have a similar audio issue with Congresswoman Watson Coleman's video. So we'll come back to that if we can, Nina. We'll go on. Yep, we'll come back to it. It's okay. We are nothing if not flexible and persistent. So I'm going to turn now to Congresswoman Sherrill's statement of support. Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill from the I can't remember which from which congressional district, having a senior moment this year. But Congresswoman Sherrill shared with us her support. As New Jersey and the nation emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, it's critical that investments in housing security are part of our long-term recovery. Congresswoman Sherrill is obviously from District 11, and we are really grateful to have her support in this endeavor as well. Also with us today is Senate Majority Leader, Senator Teresa Ruiz, and I believe that she is on the Zoom. We wanted to give her an opportunity to say a few words about what the Build Back Better Act will mean, there she is, for New Jersey and how the state can play a role in making sure that it gets passed. And so we are thrilled to have you with us, Senator. Thank you so much for being with us. Look, I hope you're not driving though.
No, absolutely not. I'm in a parking lot.
Yay.
I'm in a parking lot, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to chime in and lend my level of encouragement and support. And thank you to all of the partners who are here who have really helped guide us some of the policy and legislation that came forth in the midst of the pandemic to connect families in need to rental assistance. And we hope that the legwork that we did preliminarily are keeping families in homes and not being put out on the street. Clearly, any infrastructure investment plan that comes from the federal government has to lean into affordable, safe housing. We know that housing plays such a critical role. As the former chair of the Education Committee, where you live matters to what school district you attend. Where you live matters to access to transportation. Where you live matters to your healthcare outcomes. It's never been more clear in this country, in this state, and in our communities when you've had multi-generational apartments where people are living and enjoying life as they can and as they can afford, how you saw the pandemic impact that one institution so differently than a household that had space and access to accommodate. So clearly, I know I see some of my sister legislators on this, and I think they will echo this. Housing matters. It matters to the quality of life of the mother who's expecting. It matters to the child who has to make a selection for their high school. It matters to the community. And I'm just so proud that for the first time in a very long time, the Affordable Housing Trust in the state was kept whole. I know that's a commitment that many of us will steer clear to, that we saw the impact of the tax credit and the neighborhood revitalization of funds that we instituted. And so I'm just here to say thank you to everyone who's here, to consider me a partner. And there has to be a sustainable, approachable, and balanced plan as we move forward. And to any of the federal delegation that is still on here, we have to stop pretending that we are a country that makes investments in infrastructure when we haven't in so long. The Build Back Better plan talks to housing. It must speak to school construction as well, which is a clear void in that. So, any space that I can use to also advocate, I will do so. But thank you, Stacey, and thank you to all the partners who are here. I know that I thought I saw Cohen on here, and so a big shout out to my partners in Newark. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Senator. We really appreciate it, and we agree completely that housing is health, and that we need to be sure to invest in the ability for people to live in great, thriving, safe communities in affordable homes so that they can do exactly what you talked about: pick great schools, have transportation to places of employment that have good jobs at high wages so they can afford to raise their family in New Jersey. And we appreciate your leadership and look forward to working with you in your new role. Thank you so much for being with us. I want to go back quickly to the video from Congresswoman Watson Coleman from the 12th Congressional District. I think that's queued up and ready to go.
Good afternoon. Although I can't be there in person with you, I'd like to take a moment to speak about an issue that I know is important to both me and to everybody here. As you know, our country has a housing crisis. In the nation's capital, over 5,000 people experience homelessness on any given night. Back home here in New Jersey, that number is nearly 10,000. Each and every one of those unhoused people represents a failing, not an individual moral failing, but a structural one. The United States is the richest country on the planet. In a nation as wealthy as ours, everyone has the right to safe, affordable housing. In our country, homelessness isn't a necessary evil, it's a policy choice. That means ending the housing crisis is also a policy choice. As long as I am a member of Congress, I will fight to make sure that government makes that choice. I've said again and again, our goal should be to set a floor below which not one single family will fall. No American should have to go a single night without a roof over their head. President Biden's agenda includes a crucial step towards guaranteeing housing for all. The original Build Back Better Act included provisions that amounted to the largest affordable housing investment in American history. I know we're all disappointed that Senate Republicans and a certain Democrat from West Virginia stalled Congress from making a once-in-a-lifetime investment in working families. I'm disappointed, but I'm not giving up. Progressives in Congress haven't lost hope, and we're demanding that funding for affordable housing stays in the federal reconciliation package. And I'm demanding that when the government sets aside funding for affordable housing, New Jersey gets its fair share. But the federal budget reconciliation process is slow. I thank you for all your work toward ensuring that every New Jerseyan has a place to call home. And I'm excited to be here to kick off your House New Jersey campaign and look forward to seeing everything that you accomplish. God bless.
We are so grateful to have fighters like Bonnie Watson Coleman in Congress, not willing to give up and to continue to press forward to make sure that the Build Back Better deal and other future legislation includes the funds that New Jersey needs to be able to house every one of our residents safely and affordably in communities of their choice. I want to turn now quickly to another statement of support from Congressman Sirus from Congressional District 8. We worked really hard to make sure that everybody in our congressional delegation had an opportunity to stand up and say that they support the Build Back Better investments in housing, and Congressman Sirus shared with us this statement: American families need Congress to act swiftly and in a bipartisan fashion to enact permanent solutions to the affordable housing crisis. We could not agree more, and we're grateful for his support in this effort as well. Next, I want to turn to Assemblywoman BrittanyTimberlake from the 34th Legislative District. Assemblywoman Timberlake has been a leader and just a relentless champion for housing affordability and security in New Jersey. I'm proud to call her my colleague and friend. Assemblywoman?
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Stacey. I too am very proud to call you my colleague and friend, and everyone at the network, Matt, Sharon, and the entire crew. I appreciate everything it is that you've done for the state of New Jersey, particularly around housing. We know that housing, yes, it is health, but it's also the center of the wheel where all other spokes come out of. If it is not for housing, we cannot truly speak intelligently about solving the issue of food insecurity, because a person will not have a place to go home to put food from a food line in a refrigerator. We cannot speak intelligently about the achievement gap if a child is homeless and their family does not have the structural foundation of a unit with a roof over their head. We cannot wonder why that child is unable to focus in school or to participate or to achieve high marks. We have to fix housing. We cannot talk about the need for public housing and government housing, but whenever you go and you see where there is government housing, you see that it is dilapidated conditions in many different communities that needs to be fixed and repaired. We cannot talk about housing unless we talk about needing to leverage the subsidy dollars that builders need to include and build in affordable homeownership as well as rental opportunities in their projects. These are all of the different things that we cannot talk about unless we talk about housing. Okay, housing is the core and the actual epicenter of solving so many of our societal issues. And that is the reason why I have been a champion for housing in the legislature as well as outside of the legislature, because I truly believe that if we get housing right, we can fix so many other things. Now, I am in support of the Build Back Better plan. It needs to be, we need to pass this. We need to make sure that it's fully funded. We need to make sure that there's the expansion of rental assistance by at least the $25 billion to serve the additional $300,000 households, $65 billion to repair the public housing that I was talking about, which is home to 2.5 million residents. And of course, the $15 billion in the National Housing Trust Fund to build and preserve over 150,000 homes that would then be affordable to people in the greatest need of all income ranges. We have got to get this done. I have full confidence in our federal delegation, our senators, and as well as our congresspeople, that they're going to fight hard for this in New Jersey. We know that housing is a big issue in New Jersey. We have a homeless crisis. We also have a foreclosure crisis. We need to be making opportunities for all, because it is meeting the basic need of an individual in a household in order to undergird them with success is a home. Many of us are broadcasting and listening today from home. For the last 2 years during the pandemic, many of us were able to do things from home. Home is the ground zero and the base, and we have got to keep it, preserve it, and make it attainable. We talked about the Housing Trust Fund nationally. I'm proud that the Housing and Community Development Network fought extremely hard to make sure that the state's Housing Trust Fund was fully funded. We need to be doing the same to make sure that the National Housing Trust Fund is fully funded as well. So thank you so much, Stacey, and all of my friends for having me here. Let's continue the fight. We are going to pass or introduce a resolution, and I'll be asking my colleagues to vote for it in support and leadership to pass it, urging the United States to get this done and to keep housing at the forefront of this package. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. We are grateful for your leadership and the leadership of your colleagues who are here with us today, and who I know you will be talking to about endorsing a resolution that urging the President and Congress to make sure that those historic investments in housing are included in the reconciliation deal. We know from experience here, it is much harder to get something done after the legislation is introduced. And so we look forward to having that housing investment that undergirds so much of what you talked about, making sure that we have safe public housing, that we have a national housing trust fund that can help build homes for folks with special and supportive needs, as well as making sure that rental assistance is available to everyone who needs it. It is unconscionable that people are eligible to have housing assistance provided for them through taxes, and they are not able to get that simply because we do not prioritize that in our federal budget. It is really insane to me, for lack of a better description, that we can have billionaires going to space, but we can't make sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home. And like the Congresswoman said, it is a policy choice. It is not because we can't, it is because we choose, or our elected officials, some of our elected officials choose not to. I think if we had more elected officials who thought that these issues really mattered to their constituents, that they would make a different decision. And so part of our responsibility as advocates and organizers is to make sure that you all hear from the folks in your districts that this is an issue for them and that they want action. And I think that's part of our responsibility. And so we are continuing to do that with many of our members who are here today. We have a lot of folks on the Zoom, even more folks listening and watching on Facebook. And so we will continue to advocate with them to make sure that elected officials who aren't already on board with the resolution at the state level or at Congress hear from them. So thank you so much for being with us and for your just tireless leadership. We appreciate it. Additionally, from a similar area, Assemblywoman Timberlake represents LD 14, which is both Essex and Passaic County. We have a statement of support from Congressman Pascrell, who I believe we all know represents Congressional District 9 in the Patterson and Passaic area. He has also been a champion on these issues. And just quickly, his comments here today: the significant housing investments of the Build Back Better Act and the House FY22 appropriations bill must be enacted to guarantee safe and secure housing for all Americans. Thank you, Congressman Pascrell, for your support and for your persistence on this and other housing issues. Next, I want to turn to another Passaic and Patterson friend, Senator Nellie Poe, who is with us today to talk a little bit about why Build Back Better is important to her. We did all the Passaic folks at once. We appreciate you being with us today, Senator. I know you have a busy schedule, so.
Well, thank you so very much, Stacey. Let me just take an opportunity also to say hello to all the partners that are on this Zoom, and thanks to Matt and Collins and so many of you who are really the true champions in all of this. I am so very happy to be able to join you today and to take this opportunity to thank the Housing and Community Development Network for inviting me to participate once again on a very important event. I have the honor and privilege of being able to join you on a number of different occasions, and this is such an important event that you're doing, and one that needs to make sure that our voices are heard and that we're able to provide that support that you need. We certainly want to be able also to help in staying focused on this incredibly important, vital issue of housing in New Jersey and all throughout the country, but in particular, affordable housing for our underserved residents and our low-income communities, especially at a time when we know that affordable housing is so important. And let me just say that for me, the cause of affordable housing has been a particular priority for me and for many years, and it will continue to be. I'm very happy to see that the Biden administration, and certainly our entire congressional delegation that we just heard from, are working together and working hard to making sure that the Build Back Better initiative continues to be the issue of housing insecurity in the forefront of the topics of what they're doing at the moment, both as you've heard other speakers say, because of the public health issue, but also for safety issues as well. Let us not forget that during our darkest days of the pandemic, maintaining affordable and stable housing was a very critical issue for our renters, for our landlords, every single individual that had a place to call home was their safeguard, their most precious location for them to be able to feel that they were safe. So, but as we emerge from the pandemic and as we continue to move forward, we need to keep in mind the affordable housing programs will be as more necessary than ever before. And once again, I'm glad to join the network to push for the recommitment of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that was already spoken about by my colleagues, but also to make sure that we continue that fight. The network continues to always remind us that New Jersey renters need an income of what? $31.96 per hour on an average to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment. This can be a very difficult bar to reach. The many working class persons of color, especially those with disabilities, as well as our seniors. So it's truly important for us to continue and doing all that we can and do more, not less, to expand that rental assistance program. Let me just say that, access to affordable housing is always going to be a topic of serious discussion in New Jersey. We need to make sure that that is left placed as the #1 discussion on a national level. I know your network and all the partners that you have here are continuing to try to do that. You can rest assured that you have other partners such as ourselves in the legislature, many of whom you've heard from today, that will also be there joining you, hand in hand on that. One of the most expensive places in the country to live is New Jersey. That is why it's so important for us to make sure that we keep this topic up and forefront, that we not marginalize our residents, many of whom live on fixed income or from one paycheck to another. So I'm particularly proud of my colleagues in the legislature who continues to look for practical, workable remedies in dealing with the housing crisis in New Jersey, but all throughout. So let me just finally, and my last, in conclusion, just say that finding and maintaining a quality and affordable housing remains a constant and pressing question for our residents. I'd like to once again offer my full-hearted support for the efforts of those of the network and the National House campaign to bring quality and stable affordable housing to all residents of New Jersey. Let's continue to urge Congress to pass the Build Back Better, and if distributed right, New Jersey has a lot to benefit from, and we're talking about a significant amount of money, as much as possibly $1 billion. If we are to get our fair share, let's make sure that we fight for that because our residents need it. Thank you, Stacey.
Oh, thank you, Senator. We are so grateful for your commitment to these issues and your tireless efforts in both houses of the legislature, from when you were an assemblywoman to when you've become a senator, to being a senator and continuing to lead on these issues. We would not probably have the resiliency of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and other programs if not for your tenacity. So we appreciate it, and we really will lean on you and lean into this work together to make sure that Congress does what Congress needs to do to deliver for the American people, and to make sure that New Jersey can keep everyone safely, stably, and affordably housed going forward. We know that that we can't do this without each other, and so we look forward to working with you and the rest of your colleagues in the legislature to make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of other members of the state Senate, we are thrilled to be joined by my county, the greatest county in the land, Middlesex. Our newest senator, Senator Zwicker, I believe, is with us. Thank you so much for being here. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Stacey, and thank you for a few minutes to speak. First, let me just say thank you to you and your team for the leadership that you have just been tenacious with when it comes to affordable housing in New Jersey. And we need to continue to ensure that we have the tools so that the level of affordable housing, both the quantity and the quality, is available for our residents. And I'm proud to add my voice to our congressional delegation voice and my colleagues in the state legislature to say that it's of critical importance that we fully fund the trust fund, that we make sure that Build Back Better is passed and is done so in a thoughtful way. Because as others have said, housing is about home, and home is about everything. I want to spend just 1 or 2 minutes of my time talking about not just what it means to be safe, but what it means to be high quality, and some of the devastation that I saw this past summer with Superstorm Ida. Because when you look at the impact of climate change, what you see is that not only has the pandemic brought out disparities when it comes to our most vulnerable people, but so has climate change. And we talk about environmental justice. We don't always talk about it in terms of housing. So for instance, I represent a part of central New Jersey that is very suburban. And Somerville, New Jersey, which was right next to Manville, where President Biden came to tour some of the devastation. But if you look at Somerville, which is a middle-class suburban town, there were 2 areas that were utterly devastated by the rainfall. And both of those were the housing communities with the most vulnerable members of that community, right? Not to say that there wasn't damage elsewhere. I'm not trying to say anything about the other damage, but where the housing was completely wiped out, unlivable, was also the residents that could least afford it, our most vulnerable people. And so when we talk about how can New Jersey be a leader and continue to be a leader when it comes to affordable housing, location matters, zip code matters. But within that, we have to make sure that we are not building new affordable housing in areas which are going to be most prone for damage. And so it is about location, it is about security. Of course, we're going to make sure we get lead out of pipes, we make sure that our air quality is really good, but we also want to make sure when it comes to extreme weather events that we're not putting our most vulnerable communities at risk. That's what we need to do as leaders. That's what we will continue to do with my colleagues in the legislature. And Stacey, with you and your team and with the advocates that are on the phone, I'm very happy to be here, proud to lend my voice to this. We have a lot of work to do, but glad to see all of us together.
And we're glad to be able to do that work with you in your new role. We couldn't agree more that we should not be putting vulnerable folks in vulnerable places, and that we need to be addressing the systemic issues around climate change to make sure that we have protections for people going forward, because we know that folks are most likely to face that kind of damage and be unable to assist themselves because we don't have the social safety net. One of the things we heard after Hurricane Ida was every municipality looking for places to safely and securely rehouse people quickly. And we don't have that kind of housing stock. As what Senator Poe was saying earlier, you know, the Out of Reach report shows that it's very expensive to rent an apartment here. It's also very expensive because we don't have the housing stock we need. And so the Build Back Better program, as well as our state's investment in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and project-based rental assistance, can help expand that pool of apartments that are available to people at our lowest incomes. So we really appreciate you noting the connection between housing and climate change, because it is all connected, and it all does come down to where folks are able to afford to call home. And we want to make sure that we address that going forward. Thank you for being with us, Senator. I believe that we also have your Senate colleague, Senator Gopal from Monmouth County, and I believe he's with us. There he is. We've got quite a. Hi, Senator. How are you today?
Good, Stacy. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for being with us. I think we've got you not on video. I'm not sure if you're able to be on camera.
I'm on camera on my end, right?
Okay, there you go. Yep, we've got you. Somebody may have accidentally turned you off, but there you are. Thank you so much for being with us today. You're parked, I'm assuming, so you're safe to talk for a couple minutes?
I'm parked. Yeah.
Great. Good. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, of course. It's good to see everyone. You know, I'm still, as we talk about this extraordinary issue, and I've been listening for a while now, for the last 30 minutes, hearing all the speakers. You know, I'm thinking about what happened in Elizabeth last year, where we still have folks living in motel rooms, and the state of New Jersey hasn't stepped up. Some of these folks, unfortunately, are getting sent to very far counties. They're some of our most vulnerable populations from that flood that happened. I know the mayor of Elizabeth and many others are asking the state to step in and create affordable housing opportunities here. So we have a lot of challenges ahead in the months and years ahead. Housing, as we all know and everyone has said, is a human right. There's parallels to in my capacity as the chair of the Senate Education Committee, and we're talking about standardized testing. We're talking about a lot of issues. There are huge disparities between families who don't have proper housing and what happens with their kids and the quality of education they're getting versus those that have a more stable household life. So we have to do everything we can, not just get the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to 200 million, not just pass the federal bill that I know we're going to do a resolution here in New Jersey for, but it goes so much more on policy. I look in my district in Long Branch, the city I live in, where they spent decades doing tax abatements all across the waterfront, which the city didn't benefit from, and the school district didn't benefit from. Wealthy developers benefited from, and there were minimal opportunities until recently for the city to have opportunities for proper housing for the residents that actually need it. So we have so many good bills. Senator Singleton has championed a number of them, and many others. So we need to not just get those done. We need to not just make affordable housing a right, not a privilege of every family in New Jersey, but we also need to do more for first-time homeowners. We're looking at a couple things right now, and Senator Singleton has a good bill, and others do, on providing tax credit and other areas to really help first-time homeowners, especially in some of our most urban communities, because that will be a key for that family moving forward, and we have to make it easier to allow someone to buy their first home. And I don't think as a state we've done that right now. So I look, to all the partners on here. I see two incredible constituents, Felicia Simmons in Asbury Park, who's working hard there, and JJ Mistretta in Freehold, both two of many constituents in my district who have made sure that housing continues to stay on the forefront of the mind of the state legislature. And I know they contact me a lot about this. So we need to do a lot more, and we need to make sure that every resident of the state that wants housing, that obviously wants, that needs that, they all need housing, that they have that opportunity to get there. We're also seeing a dramatic increase in mental health cases among our among folks after the pandemic. And we're seeing folks that are homeless that are getting, whether it's alcoholism or depression, and they're going into the same cycles and not having a stable home, not having a place, a roof over their over their head, things that we take for granted each and every day, creates that cycle of mental illness that they're in, and it does not allow them to get out of it. So there's a lot we need to do. I look forward to working with everyone here, especially you, Stacey, in the months and years ahead to hopefully make sure New Jersey is a leader in this area. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Senator. We look forward to working with you as well. That legislation to help support first-time home buyers is very important. We also want to talk about first-generation home buyers because there's a distinction, and making sure that we're building generational wealth in Black and Brown communities is really central to addressing the racial wealth gap. And so we look forward to working with you and your colleagues to make sure that we give everybody who wants to buy a home for the first time the ability to do that here in our state, as well as make sure that they are in safe rental homes. And Senator Zwicker talked briefly before about lead poisoning. Making sure that we address both water and paint is really important. And I think tomorrow or soon, folks will be hearing from us and others about the need to allocate some of that ARP funding to address lead poisoning prevention and making sure that we stop using our children as lead detectors. So we look forward to working with you and your colleagues to make sure that everyone in New Jersey has a safe, affordable place to call home. Thanks for being with us. I believe that one of our intrepid staff members put the endorsement form in the chat, and maybe they'll do that one more time. If folks haven't had a chance to sign on to the House New Jersey campaign to make sure that those historic housing investments are part of Build the Build Back Better reconciliation agreement, as well as making sure that here in New Jersey, we are doing everything in our power to provide safe, affordable places for people to call home so that we can end homelessness and ensure housing security for all New Jersey residents. I want to thank everybody who's been with us here today. We've had tremendous speakers. It's always a pleasure to be with our members and our legislative allies and friends. A terrific shout out to our policy team and staff for pulling this together, and communication staff to making sure that everyone had what they needed, and it went well. We appreciate them and all of the hard work that our entire staff and board does. So on behalf of the entire Housing and Community Development Network, I am grateful to be with all of you. I look forward to seeing all of those endorsements roll in, and know that we are just getting started in our effort to house New Jersey. Thanks for being with us.